Okay. Good evening, heroes and heroines, and welcome to a late night screening of Practising Programming in C, in which we're going to do a bit of config file parsing. When I say a bit, I mean probably not very much, actually. Maybe we do about an hour or something. We left it at the last stream. I think we were building, but we're not running. We actually hit this. We hit this address sanitizer read memory access error for some reason in this. Apparently, it's trying to address the 0 page. I went and had a quick look at it at the end of the last stream, and I wasn't sure how it could be, how it could even be trying to do that. So we're going to address that. But before we get to there, I think I'd like to just kind of straighten out this branching, and essentially remove these go to start things. And also, why exactly am I setting the? Oh right, yeah, I'm setting that up there because we're having to set the start. We're going to the start, and when we go to here, we don't want to be resetting that to 0. When we straighten out this go to situation, we'll just be looping through the for, and we'll just be able to set this in the actual for declaration as normal. So I believe we've got a couple of instances of this go to happening. Don't think we need to preserve anything like this, because this is all the old stuff which was using the actual structures, using the actual config structures, as opposed to like our new idea of just pushing on unstructured stuff. But well, not unstructured, but it's just sort of stuff that's essentially it's key value pairs, right? That aren't tied into this particular structure. Key value pairs that each can contain, well, it's actually scopes really. It's a key value, it's a scope with an ID of whatever, well, a scope with the ID support and value Patreon, right? And then within that, it contains key value pairs for the actual fields that it contains, as opposed to it being a dedicated what is support. Support is a support, isn't it? Instead of it being an actual support structure and pushing the stuff into this. So yeah, we don't need that at all. That's just not helpful. I might just give myself a bit more room. If anybody's out there wanting to say something to me, then I mention my name and I'll hear the beep. Yeah, I'm not ignoring you. At least not deliberately. So we've got two instances of go-tos, right? So if a token is an identifier, then we want to go in and see if it is a field. If it's not a field, see if it is a field, right? I think we should also do the success, really, shouldn't we? Maybe it doesn't actually matter. Let's just see where this goes. This will be if we've got a token identifier. if this, default the string assignment, else we're going to do here, else if, token assign, token is a number, then token is a string, token is an open brace. So this means, this should mean, right, we should be doing all of this within the if within this area here, if token is a token identifier, right, default string assignment, and also default string assignment, this isn't exactly right. It should be, it needs to account for more stuff, basically, because it could be a number assignment, or it could even be well, could it be a scope initialization thing? I'm not sure. But yeah, anyway, right, so if it's a string, then we do all of this. Otherwise, we've hit a syntax error. So yeah, all this stuff should be happening in this scope up here. If it's an identifier, if it's not an invalid field, if we've got a field, then we set the true. Then we increment. So I believe we just stuff it here, don't we? Right, and then all of these cases should just go through to the right places, shouldn't they? Because like here, this is going to loop back up, isn't it? Yeah. So we don't need that anymore. And where was the other go to? The go to was here. So we don't need that. What's that saying? For that, right, yeah, and then we don't increment this necessarily because we don't, well, I mean, we handle that down in the actual scopes, in the actual code down here. So I think that should give us the same behavior, just without having the go to in there. And it seems to do, yeah. So it's this thing now. Pushing on the type spec onto the parent. Now, when I first did it, I thought that it was behaving unexpectedly. So I thought that it was essentially, I want to explain how this is working. So we've got the type specs, and the type specs are essentially so right, type specs. So all it is it's a count. It's a number. It's just an array of specs basically. And a spec is an ID. It's got this permeable boolean. All that means is that like it basically means, can this thing can it be can fields that it contains be set by like parent scopes essentially? Like do settings cascade down into this particular type? We've got a field count and an array of fields, and a field is an array. And then it's got this stuff Boolean singleton. So singleton just means, can there be only one of these fields in the type, essentially, and is it set? So these IDs, so for a type spec, this is going to be stuff like, I think it's ident support would be one of them. So like this thing here, and this would correspond to this, right? And then the string Patreon is not part of the is it? There isn't a thing for that. No, that's part of the parsing bit. We actually set the ID of that. Oh, I wonder if that's actually an issue. Push scope. Yeah, it's this ID here. So if we pass an ID is essentially it's a pair, right? So it's going to be support. The key is going to be support, and the value will be Patreon. So if it's been passed an ID, then it sets that, so it dereferences that pair and sets that to be this. All right, and this is actually how I was setting the type spec. So after doing the push scope, I was using that syntax, like dereferencing some pointer and setting the type spec of whatever it was to be, well, it's the type spec of the new scope to be that. But I was seeing that it was it didn't seem to be preserving the original settings to do with the fields, essentially, like the is set and singleton fields. It wasn't preserving the original, like, not unset fields, if you know what I mean. That's what seemed to be happening. But I'm just going to start off by just double checking if that's actually true. Like if that was actually what was happening. And the way you do that would be, so parent is a pointer, so it's going to be parent. I think it's just double check. So scope tree, yeah, type spec. So type spec is not a pointer to a type spec. It is an actual type spec. So it will be the type spec like that. And then it's going to be I suppose you could use this actually, couldn't you? Right, and then you just dereference this. So this completes. But I think I was finding that, yeah, field already set title, field already set title. So it was suggesting that all this stuff is being already set. Now I'm not sure if that is actually true. So I think I'm going to step into this and just watch what happens, just to see exactly what's going on. So you've got this icon here. I think basically I'd like to watch these type specs. So I want to step through to this line. Also, I guess it'd be in here. If there's a field, then we said the field is set true. Ah, hang on a second. What is the field actually being set to? Current field is in spec. So that is using a pointer to the parent's type spec. So yeah, it's only the type spec of the parent. Let's just dive in and just see what goes on. So we want to be going into scope tokens, and I think we want to be seeing once we go into there. I mean, we could also do that, and we could also do this. So we don't have a field, which makes perfect sense because we're probably on the root scope here. Yeah, there's no ID for this, so that means we're on the root scope. So where are we now? Still in the root scope. So yeah, we just keep on failing that. I think it might be good actually if I just don't do that and wait to get down here. Yeah. So we've just pushed a new parent. Let's just see what the parent's ID is. So yeah, we've got here, we have support. Yeah, support Patreon, right? So that's what the thing is. Now we shouldn't have set this yet. We haven't set that. We have now, right? And we've got that from the type specs. Can I just do that? Okay, here we go. So yeah, happily, the very first type spec is actually the ident support. Field is set to this, so that's just a pointer, isn't it? Right, yeah. So the first field is an icon. Singleton 1 is set. I'll just add that breakpoint back in because we're going to be hitting this situation here because we have now got, well, we will have a field. You know, when we go back up to there. So really what we should be seeing is, we should see that this never changes, right? That's what I want to be seeing. I want to be seeing that this particular, well, it's this value, always remains not set, or rather, always remains 0. Because as I understand it, we shouldn't be touching this actual value, this actual bit of memory. So can I just watch that? And what was the other thing? It was parent typespec. So yeah, we've got edits of what permeable field count to. So that's going to all be the same. If we just say field 0. Right, let's also watch this. Right. So we should see that the parent typespec does get set to set at some point. But hopefully we should see that the typespecs one doesn't. Also, how do you do that? Is it display? Is that what you do? So which one was that? That was the parent typespec. Yeah. Can't I say what watch point? You may have got to do it. You may have requested too many hardware. Is that just going to keep warning me? Jesus. Couldn't I say hardware watch point? How do you do this? You know what? Fuck it. Now what's the matter? Oh Jesus! I keep trying to go down to the thing using the T-Mux thing. Right, Jesus. Try it again. Right, what was it? Scope tokens, wasn't it? Yeah. So we want to be going into here, right? That's basically what we want to be doing. So I wanted to display the type specs. Well, let's just print it first. Type specs. Spec 1. Right. Right. So if we display it, and also if we print the parent, spec, really? Kind of. So parent is good. Type spec. Oh, it's not been set. Yeah, of course, it's not been set. Right. So there we go. So if I just display this now. So we've got a couple of things that are displaying. We've got the parent. Oh, sorry, we've got the type specs, which is number 1. And we've got the actual local parent, which is number 2. And we should be hopefully seeing that only the parent ever gets set to its set. That's what we should be hopefully seeing. Bit low battery there. So what if I print the field? Can you not see more of the field? Do I need to have... Do we need to cast that somehow? So obviously that's bullshit. Config type field. So the field is that's what I'm after. So we should see that get changed, right? We're going to be setting that. All right. We just changed it as set R, and here we go. So the type specs, this dude did get that set to 1, so that's not what we wanted. So we do. So that's answered the question as to how that works. It's like, you know, it's just modified that thing. Even though I'm not actually pointing to that bit of memory, I've dereferenced it, but I'm not actually. I mean, I thought it wasn't pointing to it, pointing to the actual memory, but that seems to be what's going on there. Which was my assumption actually. That was my original thing. I was like, you know, I've set it this way. Well, I've set it this way, so that means that was happening, and I need to be setting this a different way, using this set type spec function essentially. So that's where I was at. So let's, now that we've actually fully established that that's what's happening, let's also quit. Yeah, now that we've seen that in action, let's do this. So we're in set type spec. We've got this scope tree, which is just for our local type, local parent, and we're passing in the type spec that we've retrieved from the type specs. So all we need to be doing is replicating the type specs, the thing from the type specs into the actual local type. That's all we need to be doing. So we set that to that, this to this. Now we don't need to push type spec field, right? Because we already know how many there are in advance. So all we need to do actually is do this. I mean, we could use the actual local one that we just set as well. Is it that? No, of course it isn't. Is that it? Nope. Type spec field. Is it spec field? Right. So config type. Config type field. Config. We get in there. So then what you do is for each guy in the field count. Let's also just use this. You just want to be saying so the field contains an ID, so it's just 3 values. It's just 3 values. Actually, probably like that. So it's going to be the type spec field ID. Oops, bollocks. Right. So all that is supposed to be equal to is the spec field, right? It's just that, isn't it? So now I believe we're doing it all right, aren't we? Let's just prevent it. So we've got an invalid field up there. I think let's just prevent this from printing out the thingamajigs. Not that. Print current. Just so it's not so huge. And also let's prevent this from print scope tree. It's a little bit unfortunate that, I mean, actually we don't need to do that, do we? Okay, so these are our scopes. Sorry, these are our tokens rather. So these are the tokens, all 300 of them, or whatever. Closing brace, and we've only got one field. Sorry, one error. Field already set. Sorry, we've got 2 errors. Field already set icon, and invalid field, which is perfect. That's bang on. That's exactly what we'd expect. Because stop that warning. Because it was the icon, wasn't it? Yeah, so we've got this, so we'd expect that to be throwing the error. Field already set icon, right? We've got that from there, and we've got an invalid field, something. And happily, it's continued to pass the whole thing, but it won't actually be correct necessarily, because if you do something like this, it should die. Should get a config error, a syntax error, and yeah, expected token. Which, and this is actually valid syntax, because you can see, you could conceivably, well, let's just take an example down here. There's actually a legitimate example. You could conceivably have done something like this, right? That's syntactically correct, but we're getting a syntax error because this is an invalid field, essentially, because it's an invalid field. So we're getting, it's in the depart string assignment, right? It's this bit here, right? We're getting the invalid field exclamation mark, okay, exclamation mark. So we've had it for 2 things. We've had it for the something equals nothing, right? So this identifier is not a valid field that isn't contained in the support type. So we get an invalid field for that, and then we'll get an invalid field for the project because that ain't in there. But then we're getting this error expected token, and then we're getting all this invalid field because it still thinks that we're in the support token. It hasn't actually figured out that we're in a new project thing. Yes, it's an invalid field. So in departing the assignment, this needs to say I mean, it's kind of a bit weird because we might end up having to call something recursively. Do you know what I mean? Because we could conceivably have something that also looked like this. Right, that's still syntactically correct. We actually got exactly the same output. Interestingly enough, didn't we? Two, 1, 4. Okay, we didn't get exactly the same. Right, that's still syntactically correct. The only problem is that the support type should not contain, or it cannot contain, a project scope. So we need to be able to handle this case. We need to be able to get out of these kinds of fields. So let's see how we do this. So we're departing a string assignment. Essentially what this means is we're starting off on the identifier. After identifier, we always have to have an assign, and then we always have to have, I mean, if it's depart string assignment, then yeah, but this could be a string or a number. So let's rename this to depart assignment. So it's not expect token, it's token string. Okay, that seems right to me. So that has to be a string or a number. And then what we have is we could then have either an opening brace or a semicolon, right? And then it's like, well, you know, if it's an opening brace, you need to actually be able to get out of this entire scope, right? So kind of like what you're saying is depart scope. I mean, you could also check the syntax of all of this lot, couldn't you? Because you could conceivably go through all of this lot and find that it's actually syntactically correct. The only problem is that it isn't actually a valid field. still works the same. We haven't done anything to that yet to handle semicolon versus opening brace. But yeah, we have these two different things. If token is a token semicolon, right, so if it's a semicolon, then we just increment past it, and then we can just just go through all this and return true. So we've successfully got through that thing. But if it's an open brace, is that the right thing? Probably not. If it's an open brace, then what you need to do is hang on a minute. Do you just increment past it and then call DepartAssignment again? Yeah, you do, don't you? Right, that's all you do, I think. So we've apparently got a syntax error still. So we've got an invalid field, error invalid field. It could be, it doesn't, it's not always an identifier, is it? It could be an identifier. It's like we're finding that down in the other guy. It's like, it could be an identifier, or it could be a closing brace. Yeah, anyway. So what we're replacing here, if that, then I think we can do all this, I think. So this could be a token close brace. So if it's a closed brace, then we increment past it. Right. Do we need to then call DepartAssignment once more? Let's just try it. It's a bit of a guess, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe not. So we only called it once in that case, didn't we? Or really call it once at all? So what we're handling here is the invalid field. Can we do a print token? Or print current token rather? And I've got to do a colour, haven't we? Well, actually, let's colour it blue. So we've got this identifier something. So yeah, we're seeing something. If token is identifier, then if token is a sign, then expect. Oh, we're not incrementing past that. Okay. So if it's identifier, then we increment past the identifier. Then we should be expecting an equal sign, then we should be expecting to see either a string or number. If we see either of them, then we increment past it. If it's not a string or a number, then we return false. Then the next thing we should see is a semicolon or an open brace. Yeah. If it's a semicolon, then we should be incrementing past it, and then we should just end up going down to this return true. Yeah, we will be doing that, won't we? Let's print it out in green. So we've got this one call here. We've got the player template, and then we've got 3 successfully departed before actually calling the depart assignment against. Okay, so we're doing this recursively, aren't we? That's going to be what's happening. Yeah. So that's going to mean that all these guys are okay. Then we got title successfully departed. Although, is that correct? So where did we get to? We got the first thing something, right? We've already this icon, yeah, which we know about. Then we've got this invalid field, which is something. So we need to depart something. So we successfully depart something. And then we've got another invalid field, which is the project, right? Error invalid field. So we need to depart this particular assignment. So we first of all come in, and also let me just get rid of this new line. It's not really helping matters. So come into depart assignment on the project. So we call depart assignment. If token is identifier, which it is, we're going to increment past it, which should be expecting an equals, and then either a string or a number, so we increment past that. and then we should be expecting, or well, it needs to be either an open brace, sorry, it needs to be, yeah, well, an open brace or a semicolon. If it's a semicolon, then we'll increment. If it's an open brace, then we increment past the open brace, and then we depart that assignment. Right. I wonder if this depart assignment actually needs to keep a track of the number of scopes that it's traversed down into. You know, so that you can actually escape from this entire thing. Sort of syntactically correctly, if you know what I mean. You know, like, you enter it with the scope count at 0. Each scope each scope that you go into actually increments that scope count. And then by the time you've exited it, you need to have the scope count back to 0 essentially. So you're in no worse situation than you were when you first entered. Because we're getting down to here, we're getting down to numbering scheme. We're seeing the closing brace. And then we're not actually. What are we doing when we see the closing brace? We increment past it. So we successfully depart. This should be valid, shouldn't it? Oh, actually, well, yeah, it should, shouldn't it? Because we do in the scope the tokens function. If it's an identifier, then you'd get all this lot. Otherwise, if it's a closing brace, then we're hitting this syntax error, aren't we? Yeah. So it thinks that if the parent doesn't have a parent, if our hang on a second. If our parent doesn't have a parent, so the parent scope of this thing should be the root scope. So there should be a parent, I think. Let's just do the print token, print current token. So this is going to be a closing brace. Let's just call this blue. Or magenta, let's do magenta. So a closing brace gives us that. And an open brace, let's give that, let's make this red. So we've got one open, actually let's just make it not bold, so it's not the same colour as the error. So we've got an open brace. So we've got one open brace. For the, so that's going to be for the support. And we've got two closing braces. We've got this closing brace and this closing brace. Oh! Depart thingamajig. Yeah, we are incrementing past it. So why are we getting two closing braces exactly? They're also not right next to each other, are they? 112 and 129. So 112 and 129. 112 is going to be the closing brace after seeing the numbering scheme linear. So 112 is going to be this, and 129 is this one after the numbering scheme linear. Oh, it's going to be oh, it's these two, right? I see. So it's that, and then it's that. Oh, that was the situation, wasn't it? So basically, we come into here. Yeah, that was it. So you've seen that, and then you've seen that, and then you're expecting, yeah. And then you're ending up in a situation where you're getting too many closing braces. Yeah. Which is what I was kind of driving out in terms of needing to track the number of scopes and actually escape all the scopes. Just give us a second. I will be back in just a moment. So I didn't have any divine inspiration, as expected. But I think we probably just need to keep a track of the scopes that we actually enter and make sure that we get out of them. I think that's all you got to do. So yeah, if we hit an open brace, you sort of want to be doing, you want to increment past it, and then you want to depart that assignment. But I think also we somehow need to loop, you know, like while the scope is above 0. I mean, in some ways, it's like depart scope. Actually, is what you're after, right? That's all you really want to be doing. And also for all that, you just want the actual function to be the depart scope. Oh, hang on a minute. And also, you know where we're actually doing the depart assignment? So we've got this invalid field. Oh, there's only one. So what is this? What function is this? Is this the old function? Parse assignment. We've got to do remove. Yeah, this is the guy that we're getting rid of. So let's just get rid of that. So, depart scope. We've got one call to depart scope, depart assignment, haven't we? Error invalid field. If it's an identifier, right? Now, what I suppose we could sort of say is if the character after, well, I mean that's kind of it gets a bit cheesy, doesn't it? Because it's like, how far do you go on before? Because you got to like increment past the field. You got to increment past this identifier, past here, before you even can determine whether it's a scope or a thingamajig, or just a plain old assignment. Yeah, so maybe just having this one depart assignment field is thingamajig function is fine. If it's an identifier, then increment past it. We should be expecting an assignation, and then either a string or a number. And then if it's a semicolon, then we increment past that semicolon. Otherwise, if it's an open brace, we want to increment past the open brace. I mean, then we are just calling ourselves again, aren't we? I mean, I appreciate that we will be escaping an actual scope. But depart assignment sort of accounts for that, doesn't it? Actually, I think that'll be a pointer to a scope, won't it? Will it be pointed to it? It might not be actually. Right, so that thing will pass the scope of 0. It'd be nice if we could just do a default thing to just default initialize to 0, but we don't have that. So whenever we call DepartAssignment, we're going to pass the scope. If it's an open brace, we want to increase the scope, and then we're going to depart the assignment with that. If it's a closing brace, then we're going to increment past it, decrease the scope, right, and then if we're still in a scope, call DepartAssignment. Oops. Right. Could that be at all right? So incrementing past the thing. If scope is greater than 0, then DepartAssignment. If scope is less than 0, right, which it could conceivably be, return false. Because you could conceivably have something that's like this. So we didn't hit that, interestingly. I would have thought that one of those would have hit it. If the scope is greater than 0, so we've got this DepartAssignment. I suppose, could it just be that it would, yeah, I mean, we should still have hit something, shouldn't we? Unless maybe all of these actually need to, before returning false, maybe all of them need to sort of check what scope we're up to, which is just a bit cheesy. I mean, like, if I just do this, yeah, we still just can't get to that. Scope is less than thingamajig. So maybe that is not ever going to hit. I mean, it is a syntax error, but it's just like, I mean, maybe it's just busted because we haven't actually figured out the whole, we're not actually escaping the stuff properly. So we're not actually giving it the chance to get down to that case. Let's also just do one. Let's tell you what, let's indent it by the scope. Let's do that. So we should be able to see stuff happening a bit better. Yeah, here we go. So we've got a depart assignment project. So yeah. Then we've got another project here. So we need to depart this assignment. So that's getting incremented, indented rather. So we've got this project. So we've got depart assignment. So that's indenting by 0. The next time we call depart assignment, it'll be for here. Right, so we've seen this, and we're departing the assignment of this identity. Yeah, so parting that thingamajig, which is this bit here, and then we are going to, when we set this, we've done that. And then we're calling depart assignment. Let's just see. We've done the. So we hit the closing brace. If scope is greater than 0, which it is, then we depart assignment. Is that true actually? Yes, that should be true, shouldn't it? Because we come into this whole situation. Up here. So the scope is 0 here, scope is 1 here. Let's also just print the scope. Well, let's say incrementing scope. New scope is whatever. And let's just give it a bit of something so I can actually sort of see a bit. Right. So new scope is 1, new scope is 2. We're never getting the new scope, so we're never, apparently, so we're claiming never to see the closing brace. Is that right? It's taken an identifier. Yeah, so we're plus in the scope, and it's like, well, I mean, actually, I could just write it like that. So plus the scope, and you end up with it being at 1. Plus scope ending up being 2. Depart assignments. If it's an identifier, player template. It sees that it's player template. And yeah, we're never seeing this, are we? So we've got the numbering scheme. That's happening way down there. But do you see what I'm saying though? Like this closed brace, we are seeing this. That's probably up here, and well, it's not there, is it? Because it's oh, it's successfully departed. So yeah, basically we're successfully departing before having actually escaped the brace. If token is an open brace, if it's an identifier, so it's going to call that. If it's an identifier, then we should be expecting assignment to a string, and then we should be expecting a token semicolon or token brace. But we could call DepartAssignment. So you see an open brace. Oh, hold on a second. If you see it, yeah, if you see an open brace, you increment past it, and then you could see, well, you're bound to see an identifier, right? That's always going to happen. Well, I mean, it's not always. I mean, you could conceivably see something else after there. But yeah, in what situation do you actually encounter this case? DepartAssignment, I guess. You hit an open brace. We are seeing an identifier. So we've got scope -1 somehow. Interesting, we never end up with a scope 0, isn't it? Which is what we would actually want. Because we get into here and returning false, which should mean that it's saying that we've got a syntax error. Oh, hold on, maybe it's just returning to, maybe it's just returning into DepartAssignment itself. So the error is having to depart this, right? So let's just say that we had another scope here. This should syntax error, shouldn't it? Yeah, it does. I'm not sure this necessarily. Yeah, well, I mean, it should do really. So that is all considered to be syntactically correct. So yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly sure that we are using that scope information at all, actually, are we? Oh yeah, we are, because we were saying, yeah, we were using that to return falsehood in the case that we were trying to depart from too many scopes. So maybe this is correct. Let's sleep on it. Let's call it a day there. What was it? An hour and a half. Let's call it a day and sleep on this, and then just see if there's anything that's dodgy that we're not accounting for. But no, I mean, we got this stuff straightened out. This field already set icon, and well, it's just that, wasn't it? It was just making sure that that thing wasn't actually overwriting the original type spec. But having actually pushed that thing on, you know, the push scope, we will need a free scope call, won't we? Which will need to free the scopes. Oh no, it won't, because they were just hold on. Yeah, they're just all in line, so that you don't need to free them at all, because they're just they're not allocated. Are they? Well, hold on a second. Yeah, they are, because this contains fields. So you will need to free the scopes fields. So where's free scope? So yeah, free type spec. It does free the fields. Oh right, so we're sorted. Yeah, that's fine. Free scope tree. Yeah, that is right, isn't it? I think it is right. So scope tokens, scope tree parent. Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's cool. Takes the spec. I guess also you could just do this, couldn't you? Yeah, so we don't need that other guy sitting around. I mean, also, for all that matter, how many push scopes are we doing? That's the only call to push scope. So it sort of seems like the push scope could also take this other stuff and set the type spec. So it would have to take the type specs and the current token. Let's leave it separate. Yeah, I'll leave it separate for now. But yeah, that's it for now. DepartAssignment. Let's leave this in this state that it's currently in, which is a bit slightly messy. Potentially doing stuff that it shouldn't really be doing, but I don't know. Leave it there. And resume tomorrow. So yeah, cheers very much, heroes and heroines, for being fantastic and beautiful and heroic, obviously. Tomorrow we'll resume and see how we get on. So yeah, that's it. Farewell for now.